Homer Simpson. Homer Simpson is a bad dad because he's a walking disaster wrapped in a donut. He loves his kids when he remembers them. His parenting strategy mostly involves strangling Bart, ignoring Lisa's genius, and bribing Maggie with pacifiers. He's more interested in Duff beer and avoiding work at the nuclear plant than being a role model. His advice: if something's hard, don't do it. Despite this, he somehow manages to keep the family together through sheer obliviousness and a weird form of love that involves facepalming through life's chaos. Father of the Year? Not likely unless it's in Springfield. Peter Griffin. Peter Griffin is a terrible father because he prioritizes his own ridiculous antics over his family's needs. Whether he's getting into absurd schemes or simply enjoying a day of mindless TV, his children often come second. He constantly butts heads with Meg, treats Chris like a punching bag, and barely pays attention to Stewie's diabolical plots. His parenting style involves little more than chaos, questionable advice, and a hefty dose of neglect. In short, he's the embodiment of do as I say, not as I do, proving that in the Griffin household, laughter often comes at the expense of parental responsibility. Randy Marsh. Randy Marsh is a spectacularly bad dad, often prioritizing his bizarre obsessions over his children's well-being. Whether he's getting caught up in trendy fads like being a Integrity Farms mogul or losing himself in ridiculous schemes, he often forgets his parental duties. He tends to drag Stan into his harebrained ideas, leaving little room for genuine father-son bonding. Randy's emotional maturity resembles that of a teenager, frequently embarrassing Stan and Shelley with his antics. His idea of guidance is often a mix of cluelessness and chaos, proving that in the Marsh household, parenting is more of a punchline than a priority. Stan Smith. Stan Smith is arguably the worst dad in cartoon history, thanks to his overzealous patriotism and rigid worldview. He treats his family like a secret CIA operation, prioritizing national security over their emotional needs. His idea of fatherhood involves embarrassing his kids, whether it's forcing them into ludicrous schemes or punishing them for not living up to his unrealistic standards. He constantly disregards their feelings, believing he knows what's best, while showcasing his own immaturity. With a heart of gold hidden beneath layers of selfishness, Stan proves that being a manly man doesn't equate to being a loving father. Sterling Archer. Sterling Archer is the worst dad ever for multiple reasons. First, he's more interested in his spy adventures than fatherhood, often neglecting his son, who he barely acknowledges. His reckless behavior and constant need for thrills put his family in danger, setting a terrible example for his child. Archer's narcissism is off the charts. He treats parenting like just another mission, often resorting to immature antics and crude humor. He uses his son as a pawn in his schemes, prioritizing personal glory over parenting. With Archer, being a father is merely an afterthought, proving that espionage doesn't mix well with responsible dad duties. Rick Sanchez. Rick Sanchez is the epitome of a terrible dad, combining genius-level intellect with a complete disregard for family. He frequently drags his grandson Morty into dangerous interdimensional adventures, prioritizing his own whims over Morty's safety and well-being. His emotionally detached demeanor and reckless behavior leave his family feeling neglected and traumatized. Rick often belittles his daughter Beth, creating a toxic relationship where she constantly seeks his approval. With his nihilistic worldview, he instills fear and confusion in his family rather than love or guidance. Ultimately, Rick's self-centered antics make him a chaotic force, proving that genius doesn't excuse bad parenting. Mr. Krabs. Mr. Krabs is the worst dad ever, primarily because he prioritizes money over his daughter, Pearl's happiness. His obsession with profit leads him to exploit employees, treat customers poorly, and even exploit Pearl's youthful antics for financial gain. He often neglects her emotional needs, focusing more on his beloved Krabby Patty than on her well-being. When he does spend time with Pearl, it usually involves schemes to save a buck rather than genuine bonding. His relentless greed and over-the-top frugality overshadow any paternal instincts, proving that while he's a savvy businessman, he's a profoundly negligent father. King Triton. King Triton from The Little Mermaid is a notoriously bad dad who rules the underwater kingdom with an iron fist and a lack of understanding. He's overly controlling, fiercely protective of Ariel, and forbids her from exploring the human world, often resorting to rage instead of open dialogue. Triton's inability to empathize leads him to dismiss Ariel's dreams, viewing her curiosity as rebellion. His temper flares at the slightest sign of disobedience, causing more harm than good. Instead of nurturing a trusting relationship, he fosters fear, making his parenting style more about dominance than love, ultimately pushing Ariel away. His temper flares at the slightest sign of disobedience, causing more harm than good. Instead of nurturing a trusting relationship, he fosters fear, making his parenting style more about dominance than love, ultimately pushing Ariel away. Dr. Doofenshmirtz. Dr. Doofenshmirtz is a classic example of a bad cartoon dad, despite his comedic charm. His obsession with evil schemes often overshadows his role as a father to Vanessa, leading to a neglectful relationship. He frequently prioritizes his outlandish inventions over family time, leaving Vanessa feeling unappreciated and distant. His attempts at parenting are often misguided, with awkward, guilt-inducing comments instead of genuine support. While he sometimes tries to connect with her through his chaotic antics, his villainous pursuits often take precedence, showing that his heart, though in the right place, is often lost in his own eccentricity and ambition. Lord Aai. Lord Aai is the epitome of a terrible cartoon dad, primarily due to his ruthless ambition and emotional detachment. He views his children, Zuko and Azula, as tools for power rather than as loved ones. Aai's parenting style is filled with intimidation. He belittles Zuko, driving him to desperation and anger, while favoring Azula's ruthless cunning. Instead of nurturing their talents, he instills fear and manipulation, leading Azula to become emotionally twisted. His absence of love and support creates deep scars, proving that in the quest for power, he neglected the most important role of all, being a caring father. Mr. Turner. Mr. Turner from the Fairly Odd Parents is a notoriously bad dad, often oblivious to his son Timmy's struggles. He prioritizes work over family, frequently neglecting Timmy's needs and desires. Mr. Turner's extreme gullibility makes him easy prey for Timmy's schemes, leading to hilariously disastrous outcomes. He's often clueless about the magical chaos surrounding him, making Timmy's life even more challenging. Instead of offering guidance or support, he tends to blame Timmy for his misfortunes, proving that his parenting skills are severely lacking. Ultimately, his constant absence and naivety leave Timmy yearning for a more attentive and understanding father figure. Frank Murphy. Frank Murphy from F is for Family epitomizes a bad cartoon dad with his constant grumpiness and lack of emotional intelligence. He's quick to lose his temper, often yelling at his kids instead of guiding them. Frank's deep-rooted dissatisfaction with life leads him to neglect his family's emotional needs, favoring his own frustrations instead. He frequently prioritizes work and personal grievances over quality time with his children, creating a tense home atmosphere. His misguided attempts to teach life lessons often come off as harsh and unhelpful, leaving his kids feeling misunderstood and unsupported in their own struggles.